Thank you for listening and watching to another episode of The Bench with Jenna and Jon. Delighted to say that this week we have the head coach of England women's side, Stuart Barrow, and the captain of England, Jodie Cunningham. Today we are going to probably be a little bit more serious on the bench as we usually are. John Wilkin, might be difficult for you.
Me, isn't it? Yeah, sorry.
No, we just want to have a chat, basically. A good chat. We want to kind of dissect exactly what happened in Vegas. You've been home now for a week after losing to the Jillaroos, Australia, world number one, world champions, 90-4.
Yeah.
It was, I suppose some would say, a surprise, not necessarily the defeat, but the scoreline was definitely a surprise. Is that a fair comment, Stu?
Yeah, totally fair. And it caught us all by surprise. And I think the speed and the pace of the game from the initial offset caught us by surprise as well. And we never really recovered from that. We started the game reasonably well. We went set for set. And then after one initial break, we scrambled. And from then it went downhill, really. We couldn't cope with the speed and power of the Jillaroos. And that was a challenge, and it was a challenge to try and get back in the arm wrestle. So, yeah, the results certainly caught us by surprise.
John and I were working on the game, the Super League game. We were in studio in London. We were off air at 12:30. I didn't watch the game live. Obviously, kickoff was at 4:30 our time in the morning. I woke up on Sunday morning. First thing I did, as a lover of rugby league, as I'd like to see myself as a bit of an ambassador for the women's game, first thing I did was check the score. I felt mixed emotions. I was sad. I was a little bit embarrassed, if I'm honest. Yeah. I was really angry. That's me watching from afar. Jodie, try and put into words what it was like being out there on that pitch.
Tough, really tough. And I've been asked all week to try and get positives, try and pull positives out of the week, out of the occasion. And it is really difficult when you give so much to something. Each one of the girls in that squad, we give so much of ourselves to this sport, to the training, to that trip in particular. We've trained so hard. We've been in basically had no off season to train for this Las Vegas trip, and then you're just not good enough on the day. And I think that's hard. That's hard to accept when you're that far away. I think, like you said, it wasn't a massive surprise to not get the result out there. That wasn't something that would have come as a shock to most people. But the manner of the defeat is something that, we're not proud of as an England team. But I guarantee that there wasn't a lack of effort on that field. And that scoreline doesn't necessarily show you that. And I think a lot of opinions are based on the scoreline now. And there's not a lot we can change. But, during the game, you could feel it slipping away and it was tough.
So opinions. You talk about opinions there. Social media has been ruthless this past week.
Yeah.
It's been, in my opinion, unacceptable in certain ways. When you are in the public eye, it happens. John, you are subject to abuse all the time. When you're in the public eye, when you're doing something on a world stage, on international stage, even local stage, you're going to get abuse. You're going to get people that praise you. I think it's important that a lot of those people we need to... I think are uneducated. I think they don't realise that the Jillaroos are not only the best in the world, but they are professional athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have it. Just let me get this out first. They're professional athletes. I think that people don't realise that our girls, and I say our girls, I'm Australian, I'm a proud Aussie. I live here. I've lived here for many years. You're not full time.
No.
You're working. Day jobs, you're training in the morning, you might train of an evening, a couple of hours. These are girls are professional athletes.
Yeah.
I think it's important that some people that have made those comments aren't aware of that.
Yeah, and all I would say to that, to balance that, is some of the comments are down to lack of education about the differences, the seismic differences between English women's rugby league and the Jillaroos. I think that there's a bit of it's that. And a bit of it is that the world's full of Jenna. With all due respect, criticism online doesn't always come from a position of lack of education. It's anarchy. People like to aggravate and pick on people's weaknesses. That's what social media is all about. Now, whether you're posting pictures of yourself dancing, having a great time, you're flaunting that I'm having a great time, subconsciously it probably makes people feel like they're not. I think social media is a toxic, horrible, disgusting place that is nothing but detrimental to the lives of young people. I think it's toxic for many reasons. It's self-promotion, it's ego-creating, it's ego-destroying. It's, for me, we don't understand it. And in this situation, we can justify a lot of those comments down to lack of education, but a lot of it comes down to anarchy and just pure nastiness, which I see an awful lot. I will say that. And there's a difference, what I believe, between the criticism that I face to the criticism that the women's team have faced, is that I'm more used to it. You know, I'm around it more. I'm in a masculine environment where that male team sports vitriol is just part of the landscape.
Yeah.
Like the amount of times I get offered to go and meet a fan in a car park after games, it's embarrassing.
You always decline.
I sometimes do, and they're often nice. Ironically,
Okay.
funny. But what I'm saying is criticism does come from a position of and we need to get those facts out there, by the way, that's without a doubt, but some of it you're never going to stop. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what you do, you won't stop it.
So just on this, before we do move on, Georgie Hetherington, the reigning Woman of Steel, also now known as Georgie Duggar, has publicly said this. For those listening, I'll read it to you. The comments on social media are absolutely disgusting, making false accusations and excuses as to why we lost, picking fault with players' appearances, questioning their commitment, and being downright disrespectful. We wish the outcome was different, but this is the reality of the gap between the WSL, which is, of course, Women's Super League, and the NRLW, which is the game in Australia. Again, it's a professional game down there. The only way that this gap will ever close is if major changes are made to pave the way for a future England Rugby League. A great topic that I want to get into. Stu, I know you wanted to say something off the back of what Jon was saying.
I just on the back of the social media, I agree with everything Jon said there, but I think this is the first time our women's teams actually experience this vitriol on against them. You know, our girls are used to courting the media to publicise our game, and they use social media really, really well to get the messages out about the growth of our game and to try and create fans. And this is the first time it's really, really turned on them. And I think, for me, as head of pathways as well, I need to do some education with the younger girls coming through about what social media really is, about the positives and the negatives, so that they're a little bit more prepared for this in the future.
So I want to go back to the emotions I felt when I saw that score. I felt embarrassed and I felt angry. The anger came from, I felt that the girls weren't protected from this. I felt like they were almost sent in for slaughter.
And I will defend that by saying that we've played 4 test matches over the last 2 years and we've won them all to 0.
But who have you played?
Exactly. So our next challenge is obviously to try and play someone from the Southern Hemisphere to give us a challenge. And we were offered, the men and women were offered the Ashes series in the middle of last year for this year. So we would have been playing the Ashes at the end of the season.
So that's now not happening because of what happened in Vegas?
No, I've got no confirmation on at the moment. So originally it was a 3 Ashes series at the end of the season, and then there was talk then of could we make one of the Ashes games in Vegas and put the women's up there on the spotlight. So we accepted that challenge, knowing that in 12 months' time we're going to a World Cup and we could be in Australia's group. So I felt it was important that we did expose ourselves to see where we were at. Did I expect that outcome? No, not at all. And that's on me as the leader, as the head coach. I take full responsibility for the performance out there. That's my job. I can't get the slaps on the back when we win 82-0 against Wales and not take the criticism when we have a result like that. So it's fully on me.
Can I step in here? Because, I think that's awesome that you're saying, look, it's on me. I just don't believe it is. For a number of reasons. One is the gap is that wide. I don't think it's a coaching issue. I just don't think it's a coaching issue. The issue is such a bigger topic.
Had it been 40-0, maybe?
No, but even then, what the issue is, the gap in standards, in facilities, in money, in opportunity, in participation.
Professionalisation.
Yeah, these are the gaps. That's where the gaps is. So for me, the one mistake that was made is it was put out there as a performance fixture. And for me, as an outsider looking in, with all due respect, it wasn't about winning or losing the game.
No.
It was about taking women's sport to Vegas and saying, look, right, here's a country that is wanting to develop women's rugby league. And here's a country that has absolutely developed rugby league to where it can get to, and that's the opportunity. It was a development opportunity. It was never about winning or losing. And when we made it about winning or losing, we made it a loss for us.
So who made it about winning or losing, Matt?
I think everybody inevitably did. I don't think the narrative that we sent out or the game sent out or the NRL sent out pitched it as this is an opportunity to celebrate women's rugby league. Now, there's a huge difference between the two teams. We're not expecting a competitive fixture, but it's a chance to showcase the fact that both sides, Northern, Southern Hemisphere, are willing to really push and promote rugby league.
I think context and narrative are important in this. Look, I'm one of only 3 players who have played the Gillaroos before. 2017 was the last time England women have played against the Gillaroos, and
that's mad, isn't it?
And that was 38-0, which obviously still isn't necessarily overly competitive, but respectable scoreline. We'll see them in Super League, week in, week out. It's not that embarrassing or disgusting, which is what the sort of result this time has been termed as. And I think the narrative around this game is what we've probably lost a little bit. And winning for us wasn't winning on a scoreline. It wasn't coming away that we'd beaten the Gillaroos necessarily. I think there was other ways that we could win out of this test match. I think that's what feels
was
lost.
That sold to the players, to the team, or did they actually go there believing that they could beat the Gillaroos?
Look, I think there was a lot of belief in our group. I think there was, and like I say, there's not a lot of the girls have played the Gillaroos before. I think what's hard is in sport, openly admitting that you don't believe you can win or that a team is particularly better than you is quite a hard thing to admit as an individual player, as a coach possibly. Like that's a hard sell, and maybe we got that wrong.
So maybe as captain and coach, instead of selling the win as winning on the scoreboard, it should have been winning in other areas. Maybe a closer game or winning. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, as in, for me, if we went out there and we were competitive and the Aussies came away feeling like when we go into a World Cup, they have to take us seriously, that, for me, as an England player, would have been a win. And what's hard as a player, and this isn't asking for sympathy, because we're really privileged that we get to inspire the next generation. We're really privileged that we get to pave the way for young girls and the next generation, and I take that really seriously. But after every single big game we ever play, that's one of the first questions I will always get asked is, if we've gotten beat, and let's face it, as athletes, you're selfish. You want to win, you want to be the best you can be, you care about that result, you care about a trophy, you care about making history, and you get asked after a game if you've gotten beat. I know, but isn't it great for the women's game? Isn't the growth, isn't that really important? And bigger picture, yes, at that moment in time, you think, I just wanted to win this game. I wanted to lift a trophy. I wanted to win. And I think we always have to carry the weight of the women's game, of the future of every little girl on our shoulders. And what has hurt me more than anything, as someone who's at the back end of a career, who likes to think I do a lot for the women's game, is I feel like we've done a disservice to the future generations. And arguably all those comments, the ones that hurt me the most, are the ones that say, the women's game, it's useless. Why are we putting any money? Why are we wasting money on this? Look at them, they're an embarrassment. And I think that, for me,
do you regret going?
That opportunity was one that I would have never turned down. Right now, I'm hurting. Right now, it's raw, and I feel like it's hard to see that we've not done some damage. And if that is the case, if my involvement and our involvement had caused damage to the women's game and the future of it, then it'd be hard for me to selfishly say that it was a positive to go there. Did we need to challenge ourselves to know where we're at? Yes, we need to know where we're at, because we can't go another World Cup and not know. Because in 2013 we played against Australia. We were better than Australia in that World Cup. They beat us 2-1. We had a player sent off in that game. We should have won that game. Now Ollie Brigginshaw was playing in that game, and she converted, a penalty and converted the 2 tries. So, she's on that score sheet. She was captain of this Australia team. So it's not a massive change in terms of she's still at that level. From 2013 to 2017, we didn't play them. 2017, we got beat 38-0. We went into that game not realising how good they were. And I think we've now got to this stage and gone, wow, we knew they were good. Now we know really how good they are. And I think we have to focus on how good they are. Mm-hmm. We are the fittest, fastest, strongest England team we've ever had. We just weren't fitter, faster and stronger than them. at that moment in time, and we have to own that. But now we know that, and we can, you know, hopefully come together as a group and find a way to close that gap however we can over the next 2 years.
Yeah, just Jodie, you're talking as an athlete, right?
Yeah.
Aren't you?
Yeah.
You're talking as again about the winning or losing. The accountability for me is with the administrators. I think the administrators, got this one wrong in how it was pitched, and I think, you know, you're talking about proving an athletic point.
Yeah.
I think the realistic scale of where we're at and the investment we've put into Women's Rugby League versus to how we package it and put it out is not accurate. It's not real. We present the polished, finished article, and we put the women out in kits, and you know, we talk about paying them, which is a bit of a joke because it's peanuts. So like all of these things present professional, full time, and it's not.
Yeah, and that's the myth.
It's
so many
but that's why you're getting
people presume
criticised.
we're full time.
Exactly,
because it's professional. You know, Saints are now paying, Leeds are now paying, York are now paying players.
Just for people, what are they paying, Jodie?
It's small amounts. At best, it's expenses. Do you know, that's what it is really. Everyone's got full-time jobs alongside what they do. We train in the evenings, we train at the weekends. It isn't a wage. But professionalisation is what it's sold, because we all want to sell our game as the best thing in the world. We all want to celebrate the wins. We want to celebrate the development, which is fantastic. But everybody else then goes, oh, it's your full-time job. It's not. None of the girls have got a full-time job playing this sport.
And what they're not paid for is extra time with the girls. There isn't enough money to give them extra time to train. So we're paying them expenses, but they're still only training 2 evenings a week and playing at the weekend. To make it semi-professional and to go professional, you need more money so that you can have extra time with the girls, help them develop and become better. I always say it's about appropriate challenge, and at the moment in our competition there's that we've got a top four and a bottom four, etc. And if I bring a girls through at Dice at 17 years of age, if one goes to a bottom four club, is the appropriate challenge is they don't have any success in their development, so they find it really hard to develop. And then if I send one to the top four team, they might never have much failure. So again, it hinders development. So we've got to look at the competition structure, how we can get people in the appropriate environments. And so that's things without finance, but the game does need lots of investment and lots of money. And the ultimate aim is to try and get a broadcast deal to bring money in so we can start looking after these athletes.
Is the game ready to be on every game on TV? Are we at that level at this point?
Truthfully, no. I don't think the product would sell. And that's me being really honest, and that hurts me to say because I'm passionate about the game. We're some years away from that at the moment. But there is things we can do with our competition to make that more broadcast ready, I believe.
Like what?
So, for instance, if we've got 8 teams at the moment playing in the league, I think you play each other once, that's 7 games, and then you have a bottom 4 and a top 4, start afresh, they play each other home and away, so best are playing best, they're broadcastable, and then the bottom 4 have appropriate challenges for each other, and they're not blowouts either, so they're broadcastable as well, just at a slightly different skill level, and that gives people the opportunity to grow and let youngsters come through without them getting battered every week, if I want to be, for a better word, and that allows development, and then hopefully
to be broadcast ready. It's not necessarily about it being close in scoreline. Yes, we don't want to see blowout scores, but just because they're close in quality doesn't necessarily mean it's ready for TV.
I understand that, but if you put a game on TV and it's 80-0, you're going to lose a lot of viewers automatically, aren't you, straight away? And I think what we've got to do is have a product where people will stay engaged and watch it to the end of the 80th minute. And I understand the quality and everything needs to improve, and that will come with investment, and it needs investment.
Yeah, and look, we're talking a lot about paying players. We're talking a lot about trying to put money in players' pockets. What we need to do is get the facilities and the infrastructure around them right first. Arguably, we're back to front, and we're back to front because all you can focus on is whether someone is paid or not. And actually, we spoke before, John, it can cause more damage than good when you start paying players.
Yeah.
Because it's small amounts and people don't know the context, and then they're deemed to be professional, and so therefore they're judged at that level, and we're not exposed to that on a regular basis. But
it's a headline, isn't it?
It's a headline, but
it's
all
a headline.
our staff...
It's like it was a race to see who's paying the players.
Yeah.
And it for me, it was, I could see, I saw through it. It's like, it became a ego-driven thing by clubs to say they were paying the women. Yeah. And if you're paying them expenses, and they're paying them at, £100 a game, less than £50 a game, expenses, what are you even talking about paying people for? In this day and age, that's not even a tank of petrol. What are you talking about? So it's fake. That's what I'm saying. The veneer The problem we've got is the veneer of the women's game has been scratched away. And this, do you know what the benefit of this is? It lets us see actually what's going on.
And where we're at and where we've got to go.
Yeah.
How we close that gap. Before we look to that, I just want to ask 2 questions, one to each of you. Stu, you said that you took full responsibility for...
I let him off, though.
Yeah, you did. I know.
I said
which
it.
is
You did.
fair.
You did try to vent me, but yeah, no.
But, okay, so then let's go back 2 weeks, a month, when you first found out that the girls were going to be going to Vegas. What would you do differently? How would you have made this scenario better?
Take a tank.
And I think you know, Jon says the narrative around it, which is really hard when you're working with the likes of Jodie and me as a performance coach as well. You're coaching your team to go and do the best, and you're hoping that may be enough to win the game. And
That's an administrator's job.
Yeah, and
that's not your job.
No.
Your job, you can sell that internally.
Yeah.
The narrative outside isn't your job, I don't think. But that's a plan from a governing body or a game. Sorry, carry on.
Sorry, no, you're right. But the challenge was still one we relished. And to put the girls on the spotlight in Vegas, you know, you asked earlier, would you change your mind and not go? I wouldn't. I would have still gone. You know, it was a decision we did that we thought would benefit the game long run, and actually it's gone the other way and it's hurt us a little. But also on a positive, like Jon said, it now lets people know exactly where we're at as a game, not just the England team.
It's a reality check is
as a
what
game.
you called it.
And I think if we'd have only lost by 30 in that type of performance, it might have got swept under the carpet a little. But now with a scoreline like that, you can't ignore it, and people all have to look internally about where we're at and how we now take it to the next level. And I want to say the growth of the women's game and the girls' game has been really, really good until you get to that stage. You know, we set a record score in November, you know, admittedly against Wales, but we've still improved. We've improved year on year. It's just that the NRL have improved exponentially a lot quicker than us and a lot better than us, and that was found out on Saturday.
It's a big sport. Like, as an Australian, I grew up, and this is many years ago, I won't give away my age, but it was a long time ago. I was playing touch football at school, the girls were playing Oztag. It is our sport. We're not playing football, soccer. We're not doing that. We are playing rugby league. That is our sport, and that is why I think that the NRL, both men and women, it's so strong. That's just never going to change. That's our sport. We love it. We play it. Your question, Jodie, if you were to be asked back to Las Vegas next year to play Australia, would you go?
Yeah, I would. But we know where we're at now. So I do think we were caught by surprise with how big the gap is, with how good the Gillaroos were, and that's what we do need to focus on, how good they are and the investment they've got. You know, we're talking over £100 million invested into the NRLW over 5 years. We're talking $1.25 million salary cap this year. They're the numbers we're talking over there, and that's not, like I say, it's not about putting money in the pockets of the girls. That's the infrastructure that builds around them. That's, you know, over here, you might have one person that is employed in some way around the women's side of a club. There's no money for strength and conditioners. Physios and the medical staff have to be paid, but the rest of your staff are volunteers predominantly in the women's game. So if you talk about the expertise that we're providing, facilities, you know, hopefully in the near future they're going to have new facilities at Saints, but you know, Cowley as a training facility was built for one men's team realistically. You've now got the reserves, the lads academy, the lads scholars. That's tough for them to balance getting enough access. You've now got the women's team dropped in, you've got women's academies dropped in, you've got women's under-16s dropped in, and the facilities just don't fit the sheer demand at clubs now. And that's brilliant that we've got that many teams. But at the same time, it also means you don't really get access to what you need on a regular basis, and that'll be the same throughout all clubs. And I think that's where we do need to invest. And that is hard because we're all talking about money, and let's face it, this isn't a women's rugby league problem, it's a rugby league problem, that there just isn't enough money to facilitate what we really need to do. And the competition is probably as good as it can be with the resource we have. And the time, you know, the hard work that's gone in means there's loads of young girls that have been inspired. Year on year, each age group has got more and more girls playing. And there is a time element of those girls who've got better infrastructure, playing more regular, with better coaching, with actually people to look up to, that will eventually make their way into Open Age Rugby League and into the Women's Super League, and will be a better standard than the ones before. Our problem is, so have the Aussies, but they've got thousands more girls that are also feeding in. So
and also
that's a challenge.
I say when the best girls over here go to the NRLW. I mean, you can't blame them. Why wouldn't they? So then you're losing, same as the men's Super League game, I suppose. But
yeah, I think money's an interesting. For me, money's interesting because I look at Olympic sports. There's not a lot of money in that. You know, there's not a great deal of money in that, but there doesn't need to be because, to some extent, the social, the demographics are different. Families, often, not always, but often different. But the draw of winning an Olympics or winning one of those things is huge for young people. The participation of runners is huge. So there's a bigger draw, whereas the draw to play rugby league is not there. So it needs to pay well. It needs to have a financial incentive. That's the difference. And I don't think money is the answer, and it's not the answer as well. I think that it's been a timely lesson for me, and when you package something in a certain way and present it in a competitive environment against something that is packaged and has the resource behind it and what that does. We need resource in, but the NRLW's success is largely based around the commercial success of the NRL. And Jodie makes a great point. Women's Rugby League doesn't have the investment it requires in this country because of the poor commercial returns on men's Super League. Now in time, the separation of men's and women's sports in broadcast, in sponsorship, in everything will happen and should happen, and it does happen in some sports. But until that happens, unfortunately, the finance to do whatever we need to do is going to come from the profitability of the men's game, which isn't profitable. So then it becomes, well, where do we go? And that's my question.
Yeah. Because
we all know the answer, like, we need more money, we need more people, we need more girls, we need a longer programme, we need all of this stuff. How?
No, I agree totally with Jon. It's really, really hard because we talk about infrastructures and we talk about environments for the girls to train in, but without the investment, they're just not there. And you're trying to sell a sport that at the moment I think's hit a glass ceiling over here. I don't know how we smash through that glass ceiling without investment, and until the sport could bring in extra revenue and extra money to support another team within the club, I don't know how we break that at this current moment in time. So it's something that we need to look at. We also need to sit down and do a root and branch review of what's just happened, but without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because we have made really good progress, and that can get lost in this now, and I understand why it can get lost, but we do need to know where we are on our journey and what the next steps of the journey are over the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Jodie, sitting here as face of Women's Rugby League, what's your message to young girls who love the game, who may have watched you on that big stage, seen the social abuse that you've endured the past week? What's your message to them?
I've sort of tried to think of it as in, you mentioned the Olympics, Jon, and if you go to the Olympics and realistically out of 50 athletes, your scores, your times, whatever it is that you're sort of competing in, if you were 50th, would you bother not going? Or would you be proud of, actually, I'm 50th in the world, which is an amazing achievement? And basically what we're saying is, on rankings at least, because we've not played a lot of the Pacific nations, on rankings at least we're third. You don't not turn up if you think you're going to win a bronze medal. And for me, the pride of wearing that shirt is huge. There is not a feeling like walking out in front of a large crowd with the England badge on your chest and being able to sing the national anthem and knowing what has gone into that moment. Now the girls work so hard, and every girl you couldn't have asked any more of. You really couldn't. They give everything they could. And unfortunately, on the day we weren't good enough. But the opportunity to represent your country is something that I will never take for granted, even with that scoreline. So if we can put things in a better place so that these young girls get the opportunity to walk out in front of for their country, in front of a big crowd, win or lose, that feeling is worth it. And, hopefully we'll get there. Hopefully this shines a light so that things keep improving, because they are, and they do, and off topic a little bit, but you mentioned about them separating. We, for the first time, have got our own shirt at Saints this year with our own sponsors, so we've brought in our own money. Now, a couple of years ago, that would have been an absolute waste of time, because they said no way you're going to get any money in for that. Yeah. Now we are, so everything's getting better. We've now got an under-16s for the first time across all the clubs. You've got an academy system for the first time ever. These girls are better than I was. I look at our 16s and our 19s and think, you are 10 times better than I was at that age. So let's say, you know, like, we don't play sport because we've got any guarantees of winning. We play sport because we love doing it. And if you love doing what you do, no matter what, if you walk out with that badge on your chest, you should be proud. And I think this week has been tough because it might have been the first time I didn't feel proud. And that, I never want anyone to feel that way. And we shouldn't feel that way because the girls give everything and that's all you can ask for.
Jodie Cunningham, Stuart Barrow, John Wilkin.
Are we doing it on Off the Bench?
No, not
It's the
this
Bench
week.
podcast. I've got a really good one.
Do you want to save it for next week? We're to
It's a
time.
really
and...
quick one.
Okay.
Just men in skinny
Just John.
jeans. Middle-aged men in skinny jeans.
Just checking then. Just checking what I had on.
Stuart, I didn't look. I should have looked. I
No,
should
I'm
have
all right.
checked.
I'm all
Do you know
right.
what? I looked down
No,
at
I'm
this
all right.
tight little
I
drain
think
pipes
I-
down here.
no,
Stuart
no.
would have been in trouble. Yeah, just
Yeah.
saw a man in skinny jeans and I thought, you know what? Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Good point. I thought I'd finish it on something light, Jenna.
Yeah, a bit more lighthearted.
All right.
I went too serious.
No, that was
no.
well said.
I brought
Jodie,
it back down.
Jodie, Stuart, John, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We will see you again next week.